Hello, Caroline.
Hey, James. Good to see you.
Yeah, weekly occurrence.
It is a weekly occurrence now. So this one's going to be interesting. Although I say that with a little bit of tongue in cheek, don't I? Because when James was like, I think we need to talk about the budget and the economy, I was like, oh, boy.
Do we have to?
But it is important.
It is important, and it does affect us all as property investors. And it's one of the things that is massively outside our control. And there are plenty of things like that in property, but we just have to react and adapt to those changes as and when they come. There are certain things that are massively inside your control. The budget is definitely one of the things that is outside your control.
Yeah.
So we are recording this on the 14th of March, which is the day before the budget is announced. However, we've kind of got a good idea about what's coming. So if there is any major shocks, this is everyone, all of our listeners can have a bit of a laugh at us and tell us how we got it very wrong.
Yeah, we're not actually talking about the most obvious thing that was announced by Jeremy.
Yeah. So first of all, there's going to be continued support for energy bills, which affects all of our tenants. That's going to help let them have more money in our pockets. Also, if you're a HMO investor, it means that you're going to be getting an extended period of discount on your bills as well. So that's good for cash flow. They always give with one hand and take with the other, don't they?
Of course. They're always like, oh, here's a lovely, lovely sweetie over here. And then we're just going to cover it in salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that will then extend, I guess, past sort of when things are it's getting a bit warmer and bill usage then drops a bit because people aren't needing to use the electricity as much, not using the gas to heat the house. So that kind of really tides us over HMO wise, certainly until next winter, which is a good thing. So energy, there is going to be a additional income, or the government are going to be putting money in to help people reduce the cost of childcare, to encourage people to go back to work after having kids, because there's been a lot of talk about this recently as well, and the cost of childcare almost outweighs the average salary. So a lot of people are kind of going, why should I be going back to work in order to pay someone else to look after my kid and have no money left at the end of the day, and all my time's gone to my boss and that kind of thing. So that's a good thing, I think.
Argument. Yeah, it's a really valid argument. So that's a positive. They're encouraged to go and work.
And that's going to help the labour force as well, because one of the big things that we've seen since COVID and Brexit is there's been a massive reduction in the amount of people available to work. So that's kind of why we're seeing pubs shutting so early. We're seeing, businesses struggling to find the staff. We had a lady on one of our events who owns and runs a coffee shop and wanted to set up a string of coffee shops and was like, I've got one, but I can do that because I'm hands-on. I can't get the staff anywhere else.
Yeah, the staffing is massive, but that really is, rather than COVID, Brexit, right?
Brexit, yeah. But also, why would somebody go and being a barista is probably not the highest paid role. So if you've got a young kid, you're probably thinking, well, what's the point in me going to make coffee for someone else? Well, I pay someone all that salary to look after my baby. So it's that could massively help reduce costs, potentially a good thing. They've flip-flopped around with corporation tax quite a lot in the Liz Truss era. Did it even exist?
What era was that? Like, I literally blinked and it was over, right?
Yeah. So we had like the mini budget. So they were going to up it from 19 to 25. Oh no, Rishi back when he was Chancellor said they were going to up it from 19 to 25. Then Kwasi Kwarteng was like, nope, we're putting it back down to 19. And it's now highly believed that it's going to be going up to 25% again. So not ideal. It just means you're going to need to be, reinvesting a lot of your company income and things like that. So you don't want to be sat there on excess profits in your limited company. Just get them working again. So with all these things, everything's it's workable. You can be drawing that down in dividends. You can be moving it around. You can be, reinvesting, moving it into another company, getting it working. But it's basically a good time to not be sitting on your laurels doing nothing, thinking, oh, my company's really profitable now.
Yeah. But I mean, it's probably worth saying that how many budgets have we lived through where they said, we're going to do X and it's going to come in like 3 years' time. And by that time, we're about 6 other chancellors down the road.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, you can say that you're going to do that, but until it's actually
in place,
this moment in place, I'm not going to worry about that too much, or I'm going to leave it to my accountant to worry about.
Yeah, because it'll probably, they won't be able to do anything for I presume not the tax year that's ending very soon. It'll probably be the tax year after that, and who knows where we'll be by then. We're probably wading towards a new government by then anyway.
Exactly, and then that is going to stir up all manner of other changes.
Yeah,
it's funny how human beings hate change, but that's all we're constantly dealing with.
And we opt for change a lot of the time as well, because we kind of go, this isn't working, we don't like it, we want something new and different.
Oh, no. This is where I look at countries like Singapore. Singapore have had the same government in place for decades and decades, and they could set out a plan that they are going to create an infrastructure that brings businesses to their little, small, tiny, independent country that didn't even have its own water supply in like 40 years down the line. And that will happen because no one's going to come in and say, that's a crappy idea, we don't want to do that.
And it's a democracy. So the same government have been in charge and been voted in continuously for all that time.
Because everyone trusts that they've got control. I always love going to Singapore, but they have a huge big building that has a development plan that shows you how Singapore is actually going to look in 10 years time. And it's actually happening. And guess what? When they say they're going to build a road or build a building, it happens really quickly and efficiently. Unlike here in the UK, that when there's a pothole, that takes like 5 years for anyone to even take notice of.
Did you see the guy who was drawing penises around the potholes in order to get them fixed by the council? He was like, this seems to be the best way to get them fixed.
Oh, I mean, seriously, we could spend...
Or the Rod Stewart school of thought, just do it yourself.
Well, there's somebody going around putting little plants in potholes to encourage people to drive around the potholes. I mean, this country is a mess.
We're creative. We're creative in our solutions.
We do have to just laugh at ourselves. Otherwise, I mean, what's the alternative? So
the big news is obviously regarding pensions and ages and allowances. So the pension age is going to be increasing, which is kind of no real surprise with all the helicopter money that came in during the pandemic. And, we're not going to be able to afford for people to be on pensions for as long as they were. And, that needing a way to kind of earn back extra, if you're a 65, 68-year-old who's worked right to the top of your career, there's going to be potentially 3 more years of good prime earnings there for the government to be able to tax before you retire. And it means there's 3 years of less of state pension they've had to pay you on top of that as well. So it's kind of like a double win for them in raising the pension age.
So you reckon the pension age will go to
68? They're talking about
68. I mean, wow.
It's not a pretty thing to think about, having to work until you're 68.
It's interesting because obviously the old school mentality is, work in your career, pay your mortgage off, get a little nest egg, and then when you retire, you can go traveling and enjoy your holidays and all that kind of stuff. And I know we're an aging population and medicine's doing great things to keep us alive for longer, but we see people living their lives in home-based B&Q, Tesco's, who are clearly already retired, but the pension is just not enough to actually physically live on. And I think that's, while they're talking about, bolstering the pension pot for themselves, buying themselves more time, it's not actually doing.
You also raised a good point earlier about how people are living longer and medicine's doing well. And, as you say, is there potentially the plan there, because they need to get people working longer, paying in, because there's not enough money to pay out the pensions that they need to?
That's exactly what it is. The pension pot, it has run dry. People that are in, let's say, their 20s and 30s of this generation now are not paying into a personal pension pot. Let's be honest. They're not. That's not a priority to them. That generation is just like, oh, I'll worry about that when I'm old and crusty. Yeah. Whereas, when I was in my early 20s getting a job, my dad was like, come on, pension. You got to start paying into it as early as possible to make it, worthwhile. And I basically did it just because he told me to. But I don't think parents now are necessarily telling their kids to do that, because
they're probably not seeing they're not seeing the pension themselves. They've not had the benefit of using it, and
Correct.
They're kind of like, well, why should you?
Yeah, and it does sort of fly in the face of where's the bloody money going? You know, you're paying potentially in some cases hundreds of pounds a month, and
thousands.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, you have no idea where that's going. You're just trusting some fund manager somewhere, God knows, in some fund that's maybe going to be medium performing or high risk or low risk or whatever it is.
And you're paying hefty fees on that.
Yeah, and then you've just got to hope that when you retire, it's going to be enough.
Yeah.
And that when you break it down and spell it out like that, you're like, who would ever in their right mind invest in that scheme?
The credit crunch kind of 2008, when a lot of pension money did go missing, is probably scared a lot of people into thinking, well, I may as well use it now because I might not actually have access with this money in the future, or it might be worth a lot less than I've actually paid in. So yeah, I'm going to just spend it now, and we'll worry about, you know, the future down the line.
And also the whole cost of living crisis. People are thinking, actually, I can't afford to pay into a pension anymore. I need to actually afford to pay my
rainy days today.
Yeah, pay my food and keep my house warm now. And when I'm old and crusty, God knows if I'm even going to still be here, right? So they're just going to think, put it off, kick the ball down the road, and hope that there's going to be another plan, another salvation later on. It's scary. It really is scary. I mean, I can't see where this is going to get better. There really does need to be a better system in place, but there's not one coming anytime soon.
And then we have the actual amount that you can pay into a pension is going to be increasing. So whilst they're saying work longer, you are going to be able to, at the moment, it's just over £1 million you can have in a pension tax-free. That's going to be nearly doubling to 1.8 million they're talking about. Okay. So, and the amount that you can put in each year is going to increase from £40,000 up to £50,000.
So let's talk about why they're doing that then.
Yeah. Well, as an investor, you should know that you wouldn't, you don't just going to trust that to a fund manager. Take control of that pension yourself. Do something that you know with that pension. Now, that might be giving it to a kind of an IFA that you know, that you trust, an independent financial advisor instead of just like a pension company. Or you can convert that into a SIP, which is a self-invested personal pension, that you can choose what you do with that. And even if on a basic level, you kind of get that in a fund that's tracking the S&P. I'm not giving financial advice, but the S&P 500 has, tracked very well, been inflation beating for large periods of history. So at that point, you kind of know, well, if I'm putting it there, no one really needs to manage that, and it will just do the right thing and increase over time. If you put it into gold has increased, and precious metals have increased in value as well. You can do that with your pension instead of it just sort of being in a fund manager's account who has no relationship with that money. It means nothing to him, and he's just like, yeah, buy this, sell that, I lost a bit of money there. Doesn't matter, it's not mine. So self-invested personal pensions are good, but what we really like are SASs.
Yeah, SASs.
SASs, SSAS, so small self-administered schemes.
I always get that wrong.
You always get that.
I always get the S's around the wrong way, but it all comes right in the wash, right?
Because with a SAS, you can loan money to yourself.
Yep, love that.
Which is nice, which you can then use as a property investor. You can use that. It has to be a commercial transaction. So you have to pay yourself an interest rate, but you're paying your own pension more money. So it's like paying yourself angel investment money, which is fine. We're good with that. And it can be, I think it's 5%. Roughly.
5%. Yeah. 5%. Yeah.
And you can do a loan. And you can also use your pension to buy commercial property. So you can use it, if it's got first charge, you can use that against a commercial property.
You can actually do it on Resi now too.
You can do it on Resi now.
Resi now too. That came into play. It kind of sneaked in the back door, that did. I was always advised, no, it's only commercial. But actually, the key to the Resi thing is you can't have any lending on it. So your pension needs to buy it. Entirely, the first charge thing. But you can do Resi now too.
So kind of 99% mentality, people working jobs, people that kind of don't get this, leave it all to someone else. They'll probably never even hit that £1 million mark, let alone the new 1.8. But if you know what you're doing, if you've got a surplus of money coming in from property, you can be putting £50,000 of that a year in a pension, using that to, in some areas, cash buy a resi property within your pension tax free. So you're kind of like, you can win on so many levels if you get this right, and if you've got the right advisors around you, if you've got the right knowledge, if you've got the right team supporting you.
Yeah. So I mean, we've based tonight or this discussion mainly on little headliners that are being teased or drip fed to us through the media of what they suspect is going to come. But there's always lots of little things that happen in there as well. And the big one, I guess, for the capital gains tax, which was in the last budget,
But that'll be coming into play as of early April,
will be the capital gains tax
allowance. Yeah, so that was really nice. Everyone got like a 10,300, I think it was 10,200.
It was 12,300.
Oh, it was 12,300.
12,300. It went up to, yeah,
12,300 of capital gains tax allowance each year, and that was per person. So if you were in a couple, you know, Mum and I did a flip a couple of years ago, and we got 100% of our profits there tax free because it was all under personal name, and it was just under £24,000 profit. So it's kind of like fantastic. This is like free money, but that's going to be dropping right down to like 5,000, I think now.
Yeah.
So even it might not even be worth doing flips in your own name, because if you're only making 10 grand profit on a flip, you're kind of like, oh, why are you doing this? And capital gains tax is going to be up at 28 if you're a high rate taxpayer, 18 if you're a low rate. So it might be better doing it through a company. Again, this is where your tax advisors will be able to give you advice, but you know, so taking with one hand, giving away with the other.
That it's an interesting one, isn't it? So they gave you a 12,300 capital gains tax allowance in your personal name. So they've dropped that, and then knowing full well everyone will go, well, sod you, I'm just going to do it in a company structure at 19%. They're like, well, we're going to put that up to 25.
25, yeah.
But look, they can't put corporation tax up immediately at 25. No. There's got to be a leeway of time in, and like you say, Labour will probably be in power by then, and let's see what they'll do. You know,
it will probably all change. But and let's talk about creating new like business hubs in the UK as well, which is again a good thing because it's about kind of kickstarting the economy, getting it going again, getting more people into the workforce, into labour. So I think they really are trying to kind of put more bums back on employed seats to get the country kind of back to where it was.
I don't know about you, James, but I've just heard so much over the last year, even 2 years, about how landlords feel like the government is absolutely out to get them.
Yeah.
Very much. Oh, you know, clause 24, section 24 tax.
That was a big one. That
was massive. I have to say, I'm personally very surprised it's still around.
It's hurt those that already had properties as opposed to those that are going out and actively buying today.
Yeah, I've fallen for sure as a victim to that, for having HMOs with big chunky mortgages on them and big chunky profits on them. I felt the pain on that, and it has made me think, God, everyone's selling up. Is, you know, it served its purpose. I've made my money, but I just can't get my head around the fact that it's still a cash flowing asset, and that the tax can change.
Exactly, it could change.
The asset there is going up in value, and the tax can change. Things change, and all it's going to take is, you know, a chancellor with shitloads of property in their own name to come in and go, I don't like this thing here.
Or if they're kind of realizing that maybe it's not bringing in as much money as the government thought it was going to, and if somebody that actually sits down, looks at the balance sheet, and go, well, we could be bringing in as much money, penalizing people in it, not penalizing, but taxing people in a different way to get the same result by removing this. It's
an interesting time, and we don't like change. Is it going to stop us doing what we're doing, James?
No. Again, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just going to tweak the way in which we do things.
Yeah.
And there will be some minor changes to the structure of our businesses, but there's no wholesale changes at all. There will be no budget that ever comes in that says you must stop property investing, because there'll be lots of homeless people if that happens.
Exactly. So yeah. Lots of things to come, but thanks very much again for your time.
Lovely to chat to you as well. We've got interviews coming up in the upcoming weeks as well. So we've been busy interviewing our students and things like that. So less of myself and Caroline, more special guests going to be coming your way as well.
Yeah, brilliant. See you next time, James.
See you next time. Lovely to chat, Caroline. Bye for now.
Bye.